Yeah, if I just get this under 65, I'll be getting another 10 miles a gallon.
If the trash can were 10 feet closer to the refrigerator, I would optimize my trash can to fridge trip and save 7 minutes a week.
I'm sorry, ladies, I'd pick you up, but you'd infringe upon my efficiency.
Meet you there.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat The Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, then this is the podcast for you. I'm one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me are my co-hosts, Ash, friend of nature Schlafly.
Hi, y'all.
And Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And each week we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you'd like to see all the movies we have covered, will cover, or want to choose one for yourself, please visit shatthemovies.com and have a look. And at the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie would take to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. That's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, please subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, Game of Thrones, True Detective, and Watchmen. We currently are doing American Gods Season 3 as well, just wrapping up the season, the best season of American Gods so far. Find all that information and past episodes at shatontv.com. Finally, to hang out with us live all week long, follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel, shatthemovies.com/Twitch, where we play video games, host watch parties, and end each week with a Shappy Hour cocktail party, Fridays at 9 p.m. Eastern. And thank you so much to everybody who's been following and subscribing over the weeks. We really, really appreciate it. All that being said, Big D, what movie are we reviewing today?
Gene, this week we will be reviewing a movie that I remember from my early childhood. It is something that has been buried deep within my subconscious. And I was excited to have this review come up. Once I watched the movie, I never realized how much it was in there and how buried it had become. So I was so excited when one of our listeners, James, decided to commission the 1981 action comedy Cannonball Run.
And they wrote in and they said, "Hi, Shat Crew. My memory of watching Cannonball Run for the first time is one of my earliest memories, and definitely the first movie I remember seeing. I was 6 years old at the time, watching it on broadcast TV with my grandparents and uncle. It was being recorded at the time, and our VCR had the long play feature, so we could put 3 movies on one tape. I watched that tape so many times, I knew the entire script. This film had it all for young me. Awesome cars, one-liners, martial arts, and an all-star cast. The quotes became parlance to my friends then and today, even those who hadn't seen it. Perfect place to hide, why advertise, Mr. Foy, etc. Yes, the acting ranges from terrible to bad via actors playing themselves, and if you were to list everything problematic, the podcast would be longer than the film. But it had heart. I watched it again on my lockdown birthday for the first time in years and realized I still knew most of the script. I even laughed a couple of times I hadn't before. My first Shat experience was season 1, episode 4 of Westworld, and since then, I've been addicted. Thanks for all the content and bad times you have helped me through. Stay safe and keep up the good work, James.
James, thanks so much for commissioning this movie and bringing it back for all of us. I think Cannonball Run is, even if you haven't seen it, even if you are not a fan of it, you understand that it is a cultural icon. It's a movie unlike any other movie that's ever been made. Mm-hmm. The people that we've been interacting with for years are very special to us, and I really appreciate you commissioning this movie.
Totally agree.
Well, The Cannonball Run is a 1981 action comedy featuring an all-star supporting cast, including Burt Reynolds, Dom DeLuise, Roger Moore, and Farrah Fawcett. The film is based on the 1979 running of an actual cross-country outlaw road race in the United States, beginning in Connecticut and ending in California. Cannonball Run was one of 1981's most successful films at the box office and was followed by Cannonball Run 2 in 1984 and Speed Zone in 1989.
James, listening to your letter, I realized that you and I have had a very similar experience with Cannonball Run. We were about the same age when we first saw it, We both like cars. We both like the one-liners, the fight scenes, the martial arts, the cast. But unlike James, I never quite realized how much of the dialogue and these scenes were buried in my subconscious. As the movie went on, I kept beating the actors to the jokes, to the lines, and all this flood of my memory came back with my friends joking about the scenes, dropping the lines with each other, whether it's, where the hook is that, JJ? Where the hook is that? Or, pull over, we want to bless you. We used to do it all the time. And this movie has been there all this time. And watching it just brought back this happiness and pure joy. At the point of this recording, I am beat tired. I've been driving 7-8 hours. I was in the sun. But thinking about this movie has just recharged my batteries.
Big D just used 120 words to tell you that his Shat score is going to be heavily biased tonight.
Mine won't be. This was not a movie I don't think I'd ever even heard of it before, if I'm totally honest. So there's this weird thing that happens with our ages on this podcast, because Big D and I are fairly far apart in age, but Gene, you and I are pretty close in age, but there's this thing that happens when you're born in 1980 versus closer to the mid 80s, that whenever we review a film previous to 1985, most of the time I've both never seen it or even heard of it before. Final Countdown was one. This was another. I had no idea what we were going to be watching, but it was interesting.
I'm a few years younger than Big D, so I was very young when I first saw Cannonball Run. I mean, it came out when I was a year old, but I first saw it, I think, when I was about probably 5 or 6. My dad, I don't know if I mentioned this on the podcast, my dad died in 1979, but my dad's brother also moved to the U.S., and so he was living in Arizona at the same time. So he was around for my childhood. Now, my uncle was very different from my dad. My dad was a very successful architect. My uncle was kind of more like the Persian Burt Reynolds. He was a cab driver. He had this big mustache, and he liked to pick me up on the weekends because he felt bad. I didn't have a male role model. His idea of being a role model would he'd pick me up in his cab, and we'd go out and get a hamburger at Rally's, and then we'd go over to the toy store, Toys R Us, and pick out a G.I. Joe, and then we go to his house and we'd watch movies. And then he would sit there and smoke cigarettes, and I loved, weird Gene shit, right? So I like to get naked in sleeping bags at sleepovers. The other thing I would love to do during movies when my uncle wasn't looking is I would roll my face into the couch and basically sniff ass and cigarette smoke.
Oh, yeah.
Just deep
Cannonball.
And the other thing I really liked is I would go and I would sniff his Coors Light beer cans that were on the coffee table because beer to this day smells fucking wonderful to me.
Wow.
Anyway, that is what Cannonball Run brought back for me. Big D, for you, it was laughs with your friends. To me, it was an older man picking me up, buying me toys, me sniffing his beers and his ass and his cigarette smoke.
Were you also naked in the sleeping bag?
Who has a sleeping bag the size of a 5-year-old?
My child is 5 and he has a 5-year-old size sleeping bag.
Just he also has a pony in a private lake, Ash.
He has neither. Well, it isn't our lake.
Does he wear a uniform to school?
He does.
And where does he go to school?
I'm not going to say that on the pod.
Is its name in French?
No, it's British.
On that note, let's go to the trailer.
This is the story of an average guy and a beautiful girl.
Hi.
Don't tell me your name. I'll just call you Beauty.
You must be a sensitive person. I bet you're a fan of Rod McEwen's.
I try to be.
And his best friend.
I am Captain Chaos. Been a cop long?
And a family doctor.
Police.
Come on right here.
And how they all set out one day in an ambulance from New York to California at 150 miles per hour.
California, here we come.
But they aren't the only ones. Because this is the Cannonball Run, America's illegal Grand Prix. And it doesn't matter how you get there. It's who gets there first. Burt Reynolds is the defending champion. On his team, Farrah Fawcett.
Are you one of those volleyballers?
Cannonballs.
Dom DeLuise, and Jack Elam. And here comes the competition.
Hurry up, you little...
Dean Martin.
We happen to be in a race.
Sammy Davis Jr.
You, Shorty. Where'd you get all that jewelry?
Take a left.
Mel Tillis and Terry Bradshaw. Jackie Chan. And Roger Moore as himself.
I'm Roger Moore. Roger Moore.
All of them. Reckless.
We're in kind of a hurry, so if you could just bless it and then we'll be...
Unscrupulous.
Oh, I gotta bless her. Oh, I'm sorry, Father. She's a Zen Buddhist.
Desperate characters.
Ready. Fire!
By land. By sea. By air. They'll do anything. Drive anything. Say anything.
It's hard to understand you.
When I called you, I was doing 140 miles an hour.
And stop at nothing.
Normally I drive right around the speed limit.
We all make mistakes, miss. But 160?
To win the Cannonball Run.
Yeah, we're looking good.
Come on, faster!
Cannonball Run. The only movie to get over 200 tickets before it even opens.
That's Cannonball. Perfect.
Multiple teams of celebrities travel to Connecticut to start a cross-country car race. At the starting line, observing from the shadows, is Mr. Arthur J. Foyt, a play on the name of racer A.J. Foyt, a representative of the Safety Enforcement Unit who tries to stop the race because of its environmental effects and safety issues. In the car with Foyt, played by George Firth, is a photographer and tree lover, Pamela Glover, played by Farrah Fawcett.
So I was pretty skeptical of this movie. I didn't really know what it was going to be about. And then in our first 5-minute clip, the entirety of the 5-minute clip is just the credits, and the credits are rolling over footage of highways. And I have to admit, the more the credits rolled, the more kind of encouraged I got about this movie, because each and every person that they showed, a lot of the movies we watch, especially lately, I'm like, who's that? Who's that? Right? Like with my science project, Fisher Stevens, yay. Dennis Hopper, yay. I have no clue who else was in that movie, right? But this one, it's like Burt Reynolds, Roger Moore, Dom DeLuise, Farrah Fawcett. I mean, it just keeps going and going and going. I had no clue that this was packed with so many celebrities.
This was a litmus test for me as to whether the celebrities my mom and uncle and aunts worshipped were actually worth a damn, right? I saw the names, but I honestly couldn't imagine half of their faces. But the first drum roll moment was Dean Martin, right? So we see Sammy Davis Jr., he's doing his thing, and there's a guy with his back to the camera. It's like, it's Dean Martin. And I was very worried about him throughout this movie. He spun around and I went, fuck. I mean, I remember him from the Rat Pack, right? And he looked great. He was Dino, you know, he looked great. He was sexy. He was cool. In Cannonball Run, he looks like a carpet that was torn out of a 40-year-old Vegas casino and left in a hot alley for trash pickup. I
didn't realize that was actually Dean Martin. I thought they were trolling him. Like it was some dude, like, because he looked like, you know, like the Madame Tussauds wax figure version of Dean Martin. Like that's what he looked like. And I genuinely, almost the entire movie was like, man, Dean Martin must have been pissed. Like, why would Sammy Davis Jr. let them do this? And then at the end, it comes up, no, this is really Dean Martin. I was like, what?
And he did one more Cannonball Run, and those were his last two movies. And then he just fucking died. Wow. But I'm pretty sure in this movie, he was dead, and the only part of him that was still alive was his eyebrows just kept growing.
Right. They iced him.
Yeah, and Gene, you telling me that ruined his performance for me. I kept watching him being like, oh, come on, somebody come on set, help him. Get that man some water. Put him to bed.
But then there were other people who I didn't remember being in this movie who absolutely shined. Like every time I watch this movie, even though I know how it ends, I find myself rooting for two teams. There's the Japanese team with Jackie Chan and the Subaru, and they've got that nihilistic car computer that just tells people, don't feel. That's my dream car, right? But there's also this hee-haw duo of Mel Tillis and Terry Bradshaw. And I used to fucking hate Terry Bradshaw because on the NFL commentary that he would do, this football commentary was so fucking stupid. Like, he's got to be the stupidest fucking guy alive, right? But he's grown so stupid that he's lovable. And in this movie, he looks like a fucking physical specimen. I mean, he's still balding, but he looks good. And all I wanted to do was take Mel Tillis and Terry Bradshaw, slam some cold ones, and work on like some big, dumb Monte Carlo with these guys. And their lines are so classic. I mean, Big D, you talk about how quotable this movie is. It ain't running worth a shit, and it's wet after the car was in the pool. Like, that's so fucking good. Mel Tillis just comes up with a song, I assume on the spot. It's like, I can't see shit, can you?
There's even some random cameos by sports figures. That Joe Klecko, who was a member of the Jets and the Sack Exchange, he is the truck driver who like piggybacks the ambulance. Why is he in this movie? Who cast him? Who would even think that he was there? But yes, I agree. Bradshaw, I was like, shit, I see now why he is the legend he is besides the rings.
Yeah.
He was a different kind of cat.
Yeah, because as the years go by, he just looks more and more like Riff Raff from the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah.
Was he hot? I don't know.
Hot enough.
I mean, not hot. He was a specimen.
Yeah, he was.
Well, specimen implies sexy, right?
No. I'm saying, like, if I went to like the zoo and I saw a gorilla, I'd say, my, that's quite a specimen.
He's capable. Yeah.
Okay.
He's capable.
He's capable. Okay. I mean, all I remember of Terry Bradshaw is I'm ruined by that terrible Matthew McConaughey movie, Failure to Launch, where he's naked and you just see his butt a lot. It's kind of gross. He was not a specimen in that movie. I will say this. If the plot starts unfolding, and I'm going, man, I feel like I've seen this movie before. And the further and further that I kind of like get into the movie itself, I go, oh, that this movie felt so much like a movie I despised in the early 2000s called Rat Race. Have either of you ever seen it?
Never even heard of it.
Terrible. And it also has tons of celebrities in the cast. And it's about this group of people that partner up and they try to go across the country. Whoopi Goldberg's in it. Mr. Bean's in it. Seth Green's in it. There's a twist on that where instead of them racing, they're trying to like get quickly across the country to get $2 million. But it reminded me so much of this movie. And I hated that movie so much that I started to, I don't know, I think it started to taint how I felt about the first part of this film.
Ash, that is so unfair.
Mm-hmm.
That's like saying you hate rock and roll because Nickelback exists.
The first Facebook group I joined was a group called Even God Hates Nickelback. But Nickelback isn't influenced by the bands that I love. Like, that movie was influenced clearly by this movie.
But this movie and what they do, it is so very typical 70s and 80s. You get a group of older celebrities, you put them together and just create content. Vanessa and I were watching the Love Boat intros. We got down the rabbit hole there where it's like introducing and it shows you the actors who are just trying to get a payday. They would throw them on a cruise ship or maybe a variety show. They would do roasts. You had the game show, Hollywood Squares, where they would put all the celebrities who are a little past their prime. And that's what this movie did. But I don't feel that these characters were quite at that desperate edge. They all seemed like they had enough skin in the game still that they were credible. So I found myself wanting to learn some of the history of the Cannonball Run. And the actual race was based on something that happened. It was called the Cannonball Baker Sea to Shining Sea Memorial Dash. And it was organized originally by a writer and an auto racer, Brock Yates, and a friend of his, car and driver editor, Steve Smith. And the first time they ran it, it wasn't a competition. It wasn't to see who could win. They just wanted to celebrate the U.S. interstate system. And they were starting to protest something that was going on in the U.S. at this time. There was the whole oil embargo. The gas prices were going up. They were starting to enforce these new traffic laws nationwide. And there was a lot of backlash to it. In 1974, Nixon actually instituted the first nationwide 55-mile-an-hour speed limit. So people were up in arms, people were angry, and this race became a protest. It became a way to show, hey, we don't want safer, we don't want smaller cars, we're Americans, we want big fuck yeah V8s, and we want to drive across the country as fast as we could.
Kids like me who grew up watching Cannonball Run eventually grew up into adults who started races like the Baker's Dozen and the Chop Top Challenge. And if you're not familiar with these, they're super cheap to get into and they're amazing to follow. You can follow them online. Just Google Baker's Dozen or the Chop Top Challenge. The Baker's Dozen, by the way, is a moped race. It goes across 2,000 miles with teams of 4. So one person could be on the moped at any given time, but they got all these rules like you can't ever load the moped onto a vehicle. One of my favorite is that you can't carry a spare motor, but you can carry as many parts as you want. You got a chase vehicle following you. But most of the time, these teams are so poor that sometimes the chase vehicle breaks down while the moped's still going. I have the whole problem there too. But there's also this Chop Top Challenge, which one of my friends, Jason, actually owns. He had the chance to buy the rights to the Chop Top Challenge after winning it. He was on Team Jeep, and they won Chop Top Challenge. And they're like, "Hey, do you want to just buy the whole race?" And this one's amazing. It's points based and more about fun than about who comes in first.
Wasn't he a guest host on Shat The Movies?
Now that was James, who was on Team Jeep. But the best part about Chop Top Challenge is that you're basically taking any vehicle, any four-wheeled vehicle, and you just chop the windshield, the roof, and any of the support pillars off. So you get limousines, you got Jeep Cherokees, you got Miatas, whatever you want, and it's team-based as well. But nobody gives a shit if you come in first. It's more about just going cross country with a group of 100 maniacs.
I guess I must be really young here because I had no clue that the speed limit was ever as low as 55 miles per hour. I have a really bad habit of driving really fast, and it gets worse every time I drive back and forth between Houston and New Orleans because I hate that drive. And so I get really upset when I have to leave Texas and the speed limit drops from 75 to 70. Is one of the best parts about Texas is that our speed limit is 75. So I can't imagine how you would get anywhere going as slow as 55 fucking miles an hour. I mean, our farm to market roads out here have higher speed limits than that.
Yeah, but if you adjust the speed in Texas to the size of Texas, you're really going 15 miles per hour when you're going 70 miles per hour.
Maybe.
Yeah, they increase the speed limit so you can get the hell out of the state as quick as possible.
Still not fast enough.
You guys might be thinking Gene Lyons. His reputation says he's the most fun guy in the world. He must be a wild card.
Oh, yeah.
An absolute animal on the road. Guys, I am obsessed with optimal everything. Optimal thermostat settings, optimal weight. I look up what the optimal thing is and I try to match it. That is my life story. And yes, even optimal driving speed. The King Bee hates getting in the car with me because he's like, dude, what the fuck? Like, let's go. But I understand that the most efficient highway speed is 65 miles per hour. And I do not go faster, even on my motorcycle. Anything faster than 65 miles per hour causes a massive drop in fuel efficiency and is unsafe. Keep it at 65, y'all.
Wow, there we just destroyed the Gene fun guy theory. And now we were starting to expose what he really is.
So many ladies out there who are like, Gene's so hot. They just turned you off, sir.
Not the sensible ones.
You just got canceled, sir. Because 65, oh my God. I would be looking over at your speedometer the whole time, like just really shady. Like what you doing over there? Because how do you go that slow?
Yeah, all those ladies are drying up like Dean Martin's skin right now at the thought of Gene Lyons charting his nest.
No, driving in his cardigan, because that's what it's like. Like, you're going to put a sensible cardigan on and go on a safe road trip at only 65 miles per hour.
Yo, if that seems absurd in a car, imagine on the motorcycle, because they'll be riding with like a pack of 4 and everybody else is like, well, I'll get there eventually.
Oh my God, you're such an old man all of a sudden. What is happening?
No, nothing's happening. You're just being exposed to the truth.
No, I'm having such trouble.
Ash, I've been like this my whole life. It's not an old man thing. I was born old, I guess.
Yeah, but you're like the coolest dude and you go 65 just...
Hey, fuel efficiency is cool, man.
At least you're wearing all black when you do it. It's fine.
Right now, he's merely optimizing your arousal. That's all he's doing. He's trying to bring it all down. Okay.
That's the problem, is it can't be optimized if it's never allowed to get there because you're moving so fucking slow.
He's just dialing it back.
When I give you that look, you're not looking at the speedometer anymore.
Oh, no.
I bet you I am. I bet you I am because that's real fucking slow, dude.
Okay. Well, I want to talk about real slow and real fast. Going back to that real race, right? Gene is not winning that real race. Jimmy the Greek, who's another like entry into this movie. I don't know if you know who he was. Jimmy the Greek, who is in Vegas, he's at the sports book and he's talking with Sammy Davis about the race. He was a famous Vegas handicapper. He used to do Sunday football for the NFL until he made some racist comments about African Americans and their ability to become executives and leaders like in NFL organizations. So he was out. He's in this movie, but they're having a conversation and they're talking about the race as a whole. And he says 3,000 miles, averaging 85 miles an hour. So you'd think, hey, okay, that's pretty quick. The official race was only run 4 times. It was 71, which was basically an exhibition. 72, they had 4 entries. And then it increased 75 to 79. And 79 was the last year that they officially ran it. That year it was won by a Jaguar XJS. It took 32 hours and 51 minutes, averaging about 87 miles an hour. So that's where the movie gets the information from. Since then, it has fallen dramatically. And COVID, as bad as it's been for everything else, it's been great for people who want to break the Cannonball Run record. Since COVID had the shutdown and people weren't on the highways, it freed up the roads and people took advantage of it. So in 2020, this was a perfect opportunity for some guy, Fred Ashmore. He rented a Mustang GT 5.0. They gutted the backseat and the trunk. They crammed in a custom aluminum 130-gallon extra fuel tank. He drove across the country 25 hours, 55 minutes, averaging a speed of 108 miles per hour. Keep in mind, if he stops for a fuel up and it takes 5 minutes to go 0 miles an hour, he's then got to go an average of 160 to make up for it.
Big D, have you driven at 108 miles per hour before?
108, yes.
Yeah. Can you imagine sustaining that?
No,
it's fucking terrifying.
No. And he drove it solo. He had teams which would meet him at predetermined places for fuel drops. He made it without a ticket. He had spotters. He was using Waze. People were helping track traffic. But yeah, dude, 25 hours and 55 minutes to average 108 miles an hour. I don't know how it's possible to do that.
Well, Fred Ashmore, we dedicate this podcast to you.
What do you think of the efficiency of driving 108 miles an hour in a Mustang GT 5.0?
When you go above 65, I think by the time you get to 85, you've cut your efficiency by about 40%. I mean, you were burning fuel like a maniac at that point. And I actually do wonder if he'd gone a little bit slower, if he would have had fewer fuel stops and actually made it faster. I'm sure they did the calculations though, right?
See, I'm still just trying to write this with the Species podcast because we know like your post club moves, you know, that like you're going to take her home, you're going to offer the massage, you're going to offer the shower, but like you can have the whole conversation the whole way home because of how long it takes. Like, I mean,
No, you're missing the connection. What you just described was he's optimizing the steps for pleasure. Okay, I will go home, I will shower, then I will do a 4-minute break, offer massage, beverage. I will then lower the temperature by 4 degrees, not 5 degrees, because that would be a waste of 13 cents per hour. I will then return, ensure her that I'm a good guy, and then offer her sexual pleasure.
Watermelon sugar.
Beyond the starting line, JJ, played by Burt Reynolds, and Victor, played by Dom DeLuise, are in their ambulance and come across Foyt and Glover, who have been involved in a minor fender bender. Glover implores JJ and Victor to help, but they kidnap Glover and take off without Foyt. Victor occasionally turns into his alter ego superhero, Captain Chaos, the very spooky Dr. Van Helsing, played by Jack Elam, and his huge hypodermic needle are also in the ambulance to, quote-unquote, help keep Glover quiet during the race. So far, we've gone through many celebrity names, but one that has not come up is Jamie Farr. Let's get this out of the way. So Jamie Farr was Klinger on MASH, and he is of Lebanese descent. But the Jamie Farr Arab chic character, I would be remiss as an Iranian American to not point out it was in poor taste, and it didn't offer an ounce of comedy to the formula. Like, Klinger was one of my favorite MASH characters, and Jamie Farr introduced me to the amazing Tony Pacos hot dogs in Toledo, Ohio. But this is just a waste of the guy's talent. Like, the character makes no sense. It's intensely xenophobic. And I understand that Arab sheiks were like very much in the zeitgeist in 81, but it just felt like wasted time to me.
But in my research, I learned that most of these characters and vehicle selections were based on real contestants. So you had a modified van somebody entered, an actual ambulance they used. In the ambulance, they blew out the transmission. So when you see Deluise and Burt Reynolds blow it out, that actually happened. So they also had a Rolls Royce with a chauffeur, which is what the Jamie Farr character is based on.
Awesome.
They had sports cars with women in skin-tight outfits. They had a motorhome. They had a limo. At the third year, they started to get corporate sponsors, and that's when it kind of jumped the shark. There was a company called The Right Bra, and they sponsored a limo, and they called it the Right Bra Team, where they had attractive women in the bra in the race with a chauffeur driver. The driver fell asleep. They swerved off the road, hit a portalet, and the portalet exploded all over the women and their right bras.
Oh, is this like a single tit sling?
I didn't investigate.
No, like not right as in like your right boob. Like the
like right
correct
brothers,
bra.
like it makes your titties fly.
No,
It's
like
the optimal
right,
bra. Let's just
like
say.
it's the correct bra.
Call that Optibra or something.
Oh my God, back to optimization. That's what you need, Gene. You should design bras. Optimize it.
And that's also actually my nickname for all of my perfect guy friends.
The right bra.
No, my Optibras.
Oh,
so terrible. This is destroying any cool points that Gene has ever had. Ever.
No, he got a
Ever.
couple back just now. That was
I'm going to be replaced by Kevin Brackett next week.
No. Yes.
Well, I completely agree with you about Jamie Farr. And actually, it was such a weird character that I don't really remember much about it. Like, it was completely forgettable, complete waste of time. Could have written it out. Somebody who wasn't forgettable, though, Dom DeLuise. Y'all, this dude, hilarious in this film. And I'll be honest, I had no clue that Dom DeLuise was this funny. I know this is going to sound really nuts, but I have always associated Dom DeLuise with the movie that I probably can point to for turning me into the nihilist I am today, which is All Dogs Go to Heaven. That movie destroyed my life when I was a kid. And Dom DeLuise, if you've never seen it, he plays Itchy. And the end of that film, nothing will ever break my heart more than the end of that film. And here, though, we don't get sad, weepy, Ashley's life is over, Dom DeLuise. We get this hilarious, like, funny guy. I laughed at everything he did. And I laughed at everything he said, from his entrance when he's talking about hamster anxiety attacks and how he ate the ball and his exercise wheel, all the way through the entire film. I thought he was an absolute stellar part of this cast.
Parents in the 80s, what the fuck were you thinking? You let us watch a movie called All Dogs Go to Heaven.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think was going to happen there?
Yep. They go to heaven.
Yeah, they go to heaven. Charlie.
No.
But the other thing is Dom DeLuise. Yeah, same page as you. Hollywood Squares is where I first saw Dom DeLuise. And I was like, this guy's a fucking hack as a kid. I didn't know his like true work, his true calling, his true talent, right? He is so endearing and fun and just lovable. And anyone who knows me knows that Captain Chaos as a concept should piss me off. But Dom DeLuise is just a gem of a human. You cannot hate on him.
So I'm going to say something that's controversial here right now. I think that since his death, we have had a deficiency of fat sidekick actors who are credible. Dom DeLuise was confident. He delivered the lines. Chris Farley, he's a hack. He's amateurish. When he delivers the roles, he's insecure. That guy in a little
and
coat.
He's amazing.
When you have Dom DeLuise and he's after the plane crash and he's like, are you okay? And he's like, I'm fine. It only hurts when I point. The delivery of him with the wrapped finger in that ambulance could not be matched by any of the other fat actors since.
I guess this is the point where we should point out the incredibly problematic scene with Dom DeLuise, though, and that's the kidnapping.
It's not his fault.
So I was fully expecting the kidnapping of Glover to be shocking in a 2021 context, right? You have a young, attractive woman. They kidnap her for shits and giggles. Oddly, it wasn't that bad. Like, yes, don't get me wrong. They kidnapped a woman and they drugged her. That happened. That's not okay. but also it's Burt Reynolds and Dom DeLuise and Jack Elam. Within the context of the movie, there's no reason to be alarmed with all these guys. Even if Dr. Van Helsing wanted to finger bang you while you're unconscious, I still felt sort of oddly safe. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, I have to be honest. I was prepped to be super offended when all of this kind of gets set up and you realize, look, what's going on. But I wasn't. I thought it was actually kind of funny that the whole kind of interlude there was fine. More than anything, I wasn't annoyed that they kidnapped her as much as I was that they didn't kidnap a more interesting girl, because Glover, she's pretty fucking bland. I think she's almost as bland as Michelle Pfeiffer in Tequila Sunrise. Now, she's gorgeous and she looks great when she's clearly not wearing a right bra or any bra in the back of that van. She looks good, but she's boring.
Oh, she was wonderful. I think it's a travesty. You're going to compare her to the performance in Tequila Sunrise. That was awful. She was wonderful, and she's innocent and she's caring. And even though she's not that bright, you can't help but like her. And you don't have to worry about JJ. You got to worry about like Dean Martin. When he comes to the side door, he's like, oh, I want to bless her right now. That's the guy you got to worry about.
Just going to die on top of her.
Maybe you did.
So 2 of the contestants in the race, Jill and Marcy, use sex appeal as their weapon. The Subaru team is able to turn off their car's headlights and use infrared sensors for racing at night. Seymour Goldfarb is frequently shown evading police by using various James Bond-type gadgets, and Mr. Compton and Super Chief Finch disguise themselves as a newlywed couple on a motorcycle, but Finch's extra weight forces the two to ride cross-country in a continuous wheelie.
So the only victim, I think, in this movie, besides activist female nature lovers, is the police. They are the ones who get savaged. This movie is much like if you were watching a non-ironic version of Reno 911. That is the police force across the U.S. Everyone is incompetent. Everyone is clueless. You can Jedi mind trick them all. And not one time do they run into a capable cop, except for the cop with the big boobs. But as a whole, the police force should have been upset.
So this is the first time I think that this movie needs to be digested from a 2021 standpoint, which is, yeah, cops are fucking hilarious unless you accept the reality of cops. This movie was definitely written from a lens of privilege, and you can roll the social justice warrior music now. People have these experiences with cops where you can like, they're just goofy and they're kind of an annoyance and it's kind of funny and they don't shoot you. That's when cops really like what you look like or what you are, or identify the fact that you are like them.
And I've definitely benefited from that because I completely related to this scene. Now, granted, I've never gone 160 before, and I don't own any sort of lame zip-up jumpsuit. That isn't something that's in my closet.
Travesty.
But I have gotten out of many tickets through sheer flirting willpower. I mean, I can't even count the number because, as I've said, I do drive very, very fast and I get out of them. I actually have hooked up with 2 cops that pulled me over in traffic stops, not to get out of the tickets, but I did. I mean, one of them saved me from a really horrible crawfish incident, and the other, he pulled me over for going, I think it was 89 and a 60, and we had drinks instead, and it was nice.
It's exactly what Gene said. It's your sexual privilege.
Yeah. Well, it's not just sexual privilege. It's also because I'm white.
I wish this was Shappy Hour right now because we could put a poll up and I could say, what's grosser, Gene not going above the speed limit or Ash fuck the cop? 2 cops.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay.
But I think there is one thing that we can all agree on here. This movie is boobtastic. This movie per cat, I wanted to statistically break it down like Gene, his Nest Thermostat. The boobs, even to the female cop or the waitress who brings out the order, fantastic young 80s, vibrant, soft, supple boobs.
Yeah, one set of boobs that looked like they got in an argument. They were going separate ways.
You did.
Some people are into that. I'm not knocking it. Like if your boobs are far set, that's fine. I noticed it, right? I noticed it. There were 3 lanes on the highway and they were on the left and the right lane. Cannonball Run.
They weren't making eye contact.
If I were a police officer, God forbid, I would try to be as fair as possible. And I like to think that I'd be a law-abiding, thermostat setting, speed limit going guy. I'm not giving a ticket to someone looking like that. Humans are imperfect, but those titties are not.
So are we finally agreeing? Are you finally agreeing that there are perfect boobs, that it's not consensus boobs? Because these are pretty damn perfect.
Well, I think we have a consensus that they were great boobs.
Perfect.
But if you have boobs that are different, say your boobs got in a fight and they're far away from each other, or if they look different from the boobs in Cannonball Run, that's totally okay. I accept and appreciate your boobs too.
All boobs are good boobs, but some boobs are better than others. And these, unfortunately, again, are even better than mine. They look pretty good.
Animal Farm.
Beautiful boobs aside, another critique that I have to say by this point in the movie is having never seen it before. I felt myself kind of getting exhausted because of the number of characters that are in this movie. It's kind of hard to keep up with who everybody is because they don't spend the same amount of time with each team the way that you would think they would. Like everybody doesn't get the same amount of time. And so you've got these amazing characters, you know, with Deluise and Burt Reynolds. And then you've got these others that just kind of come in and out like the Sheik, and it feels a little frenetic. And even kind of going and doing my notes, I kept going back to the cast list because I couldn't remember who was who in these secondary teams and what car they were in, and I found it really exhausting.
Yeah, I'd agree with you, Ash, except for when they bring everybody together. When the characters all converge, it's fucking hilarious. And I think that trade-off is okay. So yeah, we don't get to spend as much time with everybody or equal amounts of time with everybody. But when they do come together, that's when this movie really shines. You need that chaos, and it creates these scenes that you can really watch over and over again, because as you're watching that scene, you're looking over here and what's going on over there and what's going on over there. Everybody's doing their own thing at the same time. It's a true ensemble performance.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love that there is this superficial character development and the pacing is manic. It's jumping around haphazardly, and we don't need to know character development. I don't need to know motivation. I don't even need to know that the characters have names. I was shocked when I pulled up the IMDb page that all these characters had names. I don't need to know why JJ is going to land a plane for a beer run. I don't need to know the guy who jumps his motorcycle out of the back of the plane, what his motivation is. I just need to sit there and sing, I've gotta be free. I've gotta be me. It was fantastic the way it was.
Well, and I agree with you, because one thing that's like a total non sequitur, I feel like, in this movie is the fact that Roger Moore is playing this character that is Roger Moore. In any other movie, I would be like, okay, like this is dumb, but it isn't in this. I mean, I actually found Roger Moore trolling Bond much more entertaining than Roger Moore playing James Bond. And so he's got these lines like when he's like, I've requested you speak to me more clearly. Like in the way he says it, I busted out laughing. And I also thought like the gags in his car about like the surprises, he constantly refers to himself as an international star. Again, it shouldn't work, but it's so good.
I found myself asking, is this really Roger Moore, or is this like someone who's deranged and thinks he's Roger Moore? Because the whole interaction with his mother, I couldn't tell which way it was going, and it was brilliant they could straddle that line.
And all the while, all I was thinking about is how far we've evolved as human beings, because he says to his mom, oh, Mom, you're too Jewish. I'm so glad that we've evolved to a point that I didn't even get the insinuation of the joke. What does being Jewish have to do with any of it? What was he saying?
I don't know.
I'm sure in 1981, people were like, yeah, those Jews. But in 2021, I'm just going, what the fuck are you even talking about? And that's fantastic. That means we've come a long way. Now I want to get to one particular choice that I did not agree with in this movie. We got this millionaire daredevil that Big D referenced, the I gotta be me guy. And he decided, with all the fucking money that he's got, with all the resources at his disposal, the fact that he knows ahead of time what this race is, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to ride a fucking motorcycle, which is just patently stupid for several reasons. One, on his motorcycle, he has no windshield. He has no fairing. So he's clearly not prepared for any of this. And guys, I don't know how many of you have ridden a motorcycle at a whopping 65 miles per hour on a highway, but let me tell you, it's like getting kicked in the fucking chest for hours on end. And he's being subjected to 100 mile per hour winds this entire race, More importantly, a motorcycle's fuel tank, especially the one he has on his bike, it's teeny tiny. I mean, Big D, you talked about that 130-gallon tank on that Mustang. This is like 3-4 gallons tops. On my Honda Hawk, my beautiful 89 GT650 Honda Hawk that I take at 65 miles per hour, I can get about 100 miles or so before I have to fuel up. This guy would be filling up, I calculated, about every 2 hours at least.
It's all making sense. Ash, do you see it? He calculated it. He's optimizing. He's always been right in front of us. This is Kaiser Schlosse. We just found out. I've never seen it.
Yeah, people see me. I've got the red and white skin tight leathers, the high vis helmet. I'm on my Honda Hawk naked bike, slick as shit, custom grips. Yeah, if I just get this under 65, I'll be getting another 10 miles a gallon.
If the trash can were 10 feet closer to the refrigerator, I would optimize my trash can to fridge trip and save 7 minutes a week.
I'm sorry, ladies, I'd pick you up, but you'd infringe upon my efficiency.
Meet you there.
The primary rivalry in this movie is between the ambulance and the Ferrari. The Ferrari team, played by Sammy Davis Jr. and Dean Martin, distracts the ambulance team and flattens their tires. The ambulance team gets revenge by convincing police that the two men dressed as priests are actually communists and sex perverts. The leading teams find themselves stopped on a desert highway waiting for construction workers to clear the road, and a biker gang led by Peter Fonda starts a brawl. Captain Chaos emerges to fight the bikers, and the Subaru team also joins the fight until the road is reopened.
So let's talk about Burt Reynolds, because Burt Reynolds, he looks good in this movie. When that scene where he's in the back of the ambulance with Farrah Fawcett, he like exudes sexual charisma. You can tell he goes faster than 65 miles an hour on a fucking interstate, man. Because he's got that smolder down. Like, he just has to look at you. And I don't know about y'all, but like I have trouble watching Burt Reynolds after Boogie Nights because he's always, I think, going to be Jack to me. But I think the reason why Jack works so well and he's so good as Jack is because he has that same kind of like animalistic energy as Jack that he had when he was younger. And you've got that here. Like, the man's a fucking animal. He's got all that body hair. I mean, he's a man.
And he like rewrites the rules of what sexy is. He's got like a powder blue windbreaker when he's in the airplane, and he's got like a college cap on. The back of the windbreaker says "We Believe" on it. He's casually sucking down a Budweiser, and I'm watching him just going, no matter what I do in this life, no matter how fast I ride my motorcycle, no matter how many podcasts I record, I will never be as cool as Burt Reynolds.
Never. And this scene in the van between Farrah and Burt, there's no sexual interaction. There's no nudity. And I actually found myself becoming aroused. I'll just leave it at that.
Wow.
Not fully, but there was some movement.
Gosh, all I was thinking about was the amazing fight scene, Big D, but you just kind of changed the nature of the entire conversation. But we should talk about the greatest 80s brawl of all time, and it's in the Cannonball Run. I mean, it is about as 80s as you can get in a fight scene. You got stuntmen flying through windows and walls. You got Jackie Chan doing kung fu. Burt Reynolds is whacking a dude with a wrench. Dom DeLuise is in a mask and a cape. Like, this is peak 80s mayhem, compounded by that goofy fast motion that they love to use in the 80s. Hated it in Christmas Story. Love it here.
When I was surprised to read your notes about this part, because I would have thought that you would hate a scene like this because of how kind of goofy it was. And I will admit, I thought it was really funny when it started. I thought it was pretty hilarious. I do think it went on a little too long, but I'll give it to you. I mean, it definitely kept me a lot more interested than any of the fight sequences in like Three Amigos, for instance. Like, this was a lot funnier than that.
Gene, I'm shocked you didn't bring up the Peter Fonda cameo. Last week, you talked about Easy Rider.
Yeah, so we had Dennis Hopper last week from Easy Rider. Now we got Peter Fonda. Apparently, these guys had a lot going on in the 80s. They were just like, what, you want me to do what? I'm a biker? Okay, I can do that. You want me to be a fucking drugged out science teacher who goes back to the 60s? I'm there. I still got my tassel leather jacket. I'm in.
Well, and in the fight sequence, we finally get to see Jackie Chan. I was getting kind of frustrated in the movie that they weren't, I mean, like we've seen him, but like we get to see what he does, right? Because I was like, oh my God, is Jackie Chan really going to be in this movie and just driving a car with a bunch of night vision goggles on? And luckily he wasn't. And I think that it must have been really interesting for American audiences to be introduced to him because he's just kind of so prolific everywhere now. But y'all, the dude's talented. Like he's insanely talented and he's really funny. And I don't know, I just wish they had more Jackie Chan, please, because I thought it was great.
More Jackie Chan. Everybody gets back on the road and they leave for the race, and apparently whoever's filming the film's like, well, Jackie Chan, you just keep doing your thing, right? Like, you can't cut this footage. The race has left, and they gave us like an extra 45 seconds to a minute of Jackie Chan just because Jackie Chan. Well, the vehicles all arrive at the final destination at the same time, resulting in a foot race to the finish line. Just when it appears that Captain Chaos will reach the time clock first, a spectator shouts out that her baby has fallen into the water. Captain Chaos rushes to save the woman's dog, allowing Marcy to clock in first and win the race. JJ is furious, but Victor transforms into Captain USA. JJ laughs and hugs him. Foyt reappears and blames everyone for ruining the American highway. I was feeling pretty good about this movie, guys. I was really having a good time. Even the dog rescue scene, okay, whatever. But am I alone in not getting this joke at all? The Captain USA joke? Like, there's got to be another layer to it, right? Because Captain Chaos is saying that he always wanted to be Captain USA, and then JJ is just like, okay, I forgive you for fucking losing the race for us. I just don't get this. It feels good, but what the fuck is going on here?
Do you ever do that thing where somebody says something and everybody laughs and you just kind of go, ha ha, like that? Because
it's like 90% of my life. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Samesies. And I'm sitting there and I found myself still smiling, just like Burt Reynolds does, because it's Dom DeLuise. And I was like, okay, he's, Captain USA. But I didn't get the joke at all.
I think I'm going to explain it to you guys. I think it is the basic sauce that makes this movie magical. It was a party on set. All these people were having fun. It makes sense when you watch the outtakes throughout the credits. All the mistakes, all the flubbed lines, all the people laughing. I almost feel like there was no explanation for that joke, but because of the delivery, everyone just lost their shit. That's what I think it is, and I think that's why this movie is so lovable and becomes it was able, Ashley, to make you okay with a drugging and abduction. It made Gene okay with driving over 65 miles an hour
and insulting a Saudi.
Yes, this movie has been able to do that because there is an earnestness to it, and I think it's wonderful.
Cannonball Run has two things going for it. One, it is earnest, it is fun, it is a party, and two, the unspoken secret of Cannonball Run is it is horny as fuck. Like this last scene, everybody's fucking that night. Like they got a champagne party. I wanted to zip off my racing suit and get down. Old people in the 80s somehow, I mean, most of these people are in their 50s and 60s here. They were still hot. Roger Moore in his 50s, Reynolds, I mean, your age, Big D.
Oh, you motherfucker.
They were all just, I would have fucked any of these people.
I don't know. I was kind of thinking it was going to be like Porky's at the end, where like the girls were going to unzip their lame suits and boobies were going to be out and they're going to be pouring champagne on them. Like that's what I figured we were leading into, and it didn't happen.
Ash, up until this day, I thought that if I died at any moment in my life, I'd lived a good life and I'd be happy. And now knowing that didn't happen, I will never be satisfied. I will die with a hole in my heart.
Yeah.
Nelson.
I think also the characters would have been cool with Dom DeLuise getting in the action. They would have been completely cool. With like Captain Chaos in the orgy. I bet he fucks, like he fights. He's like crazy. I think they'd be cool with him. But Ash, I would be remiss if I did not end this podcast talking about something that I always find is a movie's weakness. The music. The music in this movie, as ridiculous as it is, and that it doesn't match a lot of the scenes, you can't help but have an emotional reaction to it. You were talking in the beginning of this review about your credits, that you were optimistic. Oh, wow, look, these actors, these are great. I think it was the cast that got you that way, but it was also the theme song, which I'm going to play for you here. We're going to let it go, and we're going to see if it has the visceral effect on you that I think it will. I suspect you'll smile, you'll start to move.
I'll start to move.
Are you ready? Here we go. Everybody, shh, take a second. Experiment on. I think it's great. And then also what we're going to do is we're going to jump from that song to the next scene where, people are talking about something that's very serious, and we get this. Now, normally you would think these two don't go together, but somehow this movie makes it work.
Well, now comes the time in the podcast where we have to give our wipe scores for the Cannonball Run. 5 wipes is an absolute disaster of a movie. It is Dr. Van Helsing drugging you in the back of an ambulance. 0 wipes is a perfect movie. It is Burt Reynolds. Ash, we'll start with you. What is your wipe score for the Cannonball Run?
So I'm about to do something I've never done before.
No, don't do it. No.
I am. I originally was going to give this movie a 3 wipe score. And I had this whole thing written out about why. But guys, I'm wrong. Through our discussion today, have found myself liking this movie a whole lot more than I thought I did. I don't think it was the song, but it was our but I do think it was our discussion. So fuck what I wrote. I will say this. I think that there are too many characters in this movie. I'm going to stand by that. And I also think that because of too many characters, it gets messy in parts. But that aside, as I think back on this movie with you guys, I realize I had very little other problems with it. It has a really smart script. It has fantastic comedic performances with, Dom DeLuise. It has fantastic comedic performances of Burt Reynolds. And like Gene said, it's thirsty as fuck. And I love a good thirsty ass movie that's also funny. And so I'm going to, never thought I would with a car movie, but I'm going to give it a above average score. I'm feeling comfortable with a 2 wipe.
Yeah.
Feeling comfortable with a 2 wipe. You guys knocked a whole wipe off.
It's a clinger. We just flicked it right off.
I want to go back and rewatch it. Not because of this song.
Ash, imagine this. Rocky Horror Picture Show treatment, but Cannonball Run.
Yes.
Yeah,
know
right.
That.
Big Cannonball Run party. Everyone dresses their favorite Cannonball Run characters. You watch together. You quote the movie.
Oh, do I get to wear the jumpsuit?
Yeah, you get to wear the jumpsuit. Yes. I'm going to be Jamie Farr.
I'll be a drunk priest.
That is your calling.
We're joking, but I do think that you're onto something here. Rocky Horror, if you just watch Rocky Horror on your own, it's not as enjoyable. It's meant to be watched with a group of people, right? This is a movie that I watched on my own, and I think it ruins what it's meant to be. This is a movie in the early 80s when we still all went to a fucking movie theater and we sat together and we experienced movies together. And this is meant to be experienced with other people and with your friends. And you know how much I love you guys, and y'all are my friends. And it was fun to fucking digest it with y'all. And I think that's how it's meant to be experienced, which is why I've enjoyed it more on the back end. So if you're going to watch it, don't watch it alone.
As a New Orleanian, you more than anybody will understand what I'm about to say. When you're sitting in the neighborhood bar and that crazy old dude comes in and he's kind of scary, but he's also kind of cool and he's kind of funny and he just has all the confidence in the world. And you start watching him drinking Coors Light after Coors Light and you start thinking, will I ever be as interesting as this guy? But you're also glad that you're not him. That's this movie. I just kept staring at it and wondering what it's going to do next, while in a small way wishing I understood what it was to live in that era. And this era was something pure. Because if we look at ensemble things like Rat Race or any of these movies that they make now where everybody's in it, it's cynical.
Yeah.
It's become cynical. There's nothing cynical about this movie. It's just balls out fun.
Also not stupid, because you either get cynical or you get Valentine's Day or New Year's Eve, those ensemble films that are just dumb and pandering. This is neither of those things. And you're right. It's God, I want to change my score again.
Ash, what hellish film library have you been watching? What are these movies?
Have you not seen? Okay, New Year's Eve. It's about people who celebrate New Year's Eve. It's just like people who are going to have shitty New Year's because they don't have boyfriends, but then they get stuck in an elevator and Ashton Kutcher's there and they find him. And he helps you sing on stage in front of the ball drop because you're Lea Michele and you haven't done Glee yet. And so there's that. And then there's Valentine's Day, which has Jamie Foxx and Jennifer Garner and all these people. And so they're just shitty ensemble films. So there's no cynicism to them. They're just completely saccharine sweet, which is also a huge problem.
Do Jamie Foxx and Jennifer Garner have sex in that movie?
It's implied that he and Jessica Biel have sex in that movie, but it's too sanitized.
Nah, I want to see the other ones.
So they don't actually fuck.
Yeah. Big D?
So I also am going to change my score.
Ooh!
I had originally said I was going to go 1.5 because I think there's an honest fun to this movie. It brought back memories. It was all right there under the layer of my active memory in my brain. As I peeled that away, I again was that 10-year-old kid when I watched it. It was fun. There's not a point where if you're watching this that you're not enjoying or smiling. There's never an act of violence that's really serious. No one's ever really mean. There's a good-natured fun to it. And for the fact that it took a very problematic topic and was able for both of you, Gene and Ash, to see beyond it, I think that takes a quarter of a wipe off. So I'm going to take a quarter of a wipe off and I'm going to do 1.25 wipes because this movie has accomplished something it shouldn't have. It shouldn't be this fun. It shouldn't be this memorable, but it was that right mix that created something magical.
And Big D, I want to point out that people's heads are going to fucking explode when we announce a score because in our Discord, shatthemovies.com/Discord, which any of you can join, by the way, it's just like our online community. It's like a Slack or any other chat community that you can join in Discord. Please hop on there. Mike J. Hall, John Lish, and Hot Sauce Steve had this ongoing conversation going on about your scoring. Not your scoring specifically, but our scoring methods. And Mike is like, can someone explain why My Science Project is the 200th movie and not the 207th? And then John Lish was doing some math and he's like, a 5 plus a 4.5 plus a 3 equals 12.5. And a 12.5 divided by 3 is 4.16 occurring, but they announced 4.19. I'm confused by this. And this went on and on and on. And then they started theorizing that you were weighting the scores and why is there a 0.03 difference? And the whole conversation after I told them, guys, don't take it so seriously, ended in John Lish saying, this is my brain. If I see a number that looks off, I get focused on solving it. Big D, do you want to address that before we announce the final score here?
On the podcast, we always discuss whoever is on the podcast, the people who have recorded 3, 4, 2, we will average their score out and then include them into the rank that's published. Afterwards, when I realized, and we talked about Roger's score in a lot of films had been way out of line. So we said, okay, let's figure out a way to create a fourth vote that will then balance out. For example, if I said, hey, Spaceballs is a 5, but Gene and Roger said it's a 1, my 5 ruins it. It becomes punitive for you two. So I said, take the average of the first in the middle, second in the middle, average those, and you get a fourth vote that should be closer to the 2. That was not good enough for me because I've been letting this little thought germinate in my head. So I went down this rabbit hole of math studies. I was like Will Hunting at the blackboard doing my janitorial duties, and I was found solving the problem. I have cracked the code. I will unveil it next week. But needless to say, if you're a math nerd out there, I went and studied up on statistical norms, standard deviations, and z-scores. By combining these 3 different factors in a unique way, I have found a way to create and perfect the Shat score.
I'm throwing like a yellow card here because our yellow card or flag. I don't really know. I don't get.
Well, you can throw the flag or show the card.
Right. I don't really get sports metaphors, but one of those. And the whole thing here is that's like what I do for a living. I'm a data scientist. Why don't you just ask me?
I fucking did.
No, you didn't.
In his defense, he did bring it up in Slack several times.
Right, but you brought it up as a fully fledged plan. Like you had already done all of that.
You don't have my fully fledged plan. You don't have the real one.
Well, prepare for me to critique it.
Oh, you go, girl. You go, girl.
Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking of critiquing, everyone hold on to your seats because if you haven't done the math yet, you're about to shit your pants.
Shat them?
Yes. The average wipe score between Big D's 1.25 wipes, my 2 wipes, and Ash's 2 wipes for the Cannonball Run comes out to, I can't believe I'm saying this, it's 1.75 wipes.
Wow.
I think it's fair. And next week, listen, what I'm going to do is, because normally we'll tell you, hey, where this ranks. With 1.75, this would currently sit with Halloween 4 in the 78 spot. Slightly better than Three Amigos, slightly worse than Temple of Doom. Next week, as I unveil the new Shat score, perfected 2.0, that Ashley will verify statistically, I will show you where the scoring changes alters things. So I'll give you a movie and say, hey, here was an outlier. This is the effect on the ranking and the score. And I think with Ashley's stamp of approval, when we get some peer review, this shit, I'm going to publish. I'm going to publish my findings.
What is the next movie?
Next week, we will be reviewing a movie commissioned by Michael H. After losing his job at a steel factory, Gaz learns that his wife wants to sue him for missing child support payments. Desperate for money, Gaz and his friend Dave decide to create their own male striptease act. The two friends recruit 4 more men, including their former foreman and a security guard. The group promises that their show will succeed because they are willing to go the full Monty, completely naked. Commissioned again by Michael H., released in 1997. And I have pleasant memories of this movie.
Me too.
I've never seen it, so I'm excited to do this one, mainly for the dicks. All right, thanks, Mike, for commissioning the upcoming film, and thank you, James, for commissioning the Cannonball Run. Thanks to all the commissioners who make Shat the Movies possible. That concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. You can email us, hosts@shatthemovies.com, or call us and leave a voicemail at 914-719-SHAT. You can support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, completing a free anonymous survey to help attract advertisers, buying our merch, or commissioning your own movie. Find all the information by visiting our website, shatthemovies.com. Also, you can check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. Find all that information on our website, shatontv.com. Wherever our fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe, and if you stop by iTunes, please leave a review. That helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-hosts, Big D, Dick Ebert, and Ash Schlafly, I'm Gene Lyons. Be sure to join us next week for the following movie.
We're finished, Dave. Extincto. Yesterday's news.
Shut it. Some of us are trying to get a job. Hey, and it says no smoking.
You forget, Gerald, you're not our foreman anymore. You're just like the rest of us. Scrap.
If you were out of work...
Get a job. If you want joint custody, then you have to pay your share.
And out of luck...
Now what? Shut up, I'm thinking.
You'd do anything...
You call them Chippendales, man?
...to turn your life around.
How many lasses were there, though?
Thousands. It's worth a thought, though, isn't it?
But these men...
I don't see why not, Gerald. Because you're fat and he's thin, and you're both ugly.
...have come up with a plan...
No, not doing it. Come on, Dave, don't stop now.
...that's going to get them a lot of exposure.
A laughing stock. Totally.
We can either forget it or do it and just maybe get rich.
This is crazy.
They may not have the talent for it.
Dancers have coordination, fitness, and grace.
The bodies for it.
The less I eat, the fatter I get.
So stuff yourself and get thin.
Or the stomach for it.
I think I'm gonna be sick.
But when you've got nothing to lose...
Right.
This lot go all the way.
You lot.
You've got nothing to hide.
That would be worth a look.
We've sold 200 tickets.
No one said anything to me about the full Monty.
Are you in or are you out?
So this is your great money-making enterprise, is it, Gary? Strippers. You.
Fox Searchlight Pictures presents...
I mean, I couldn't, could I?
Why not?
The most revealing comedy of the year.
We're doing this then, just this once. We're doing it right.
The full Monty.
You don't sing?
No.
You don't dance?
No.
What do you do?
This.
You can leave your hand on